To this newscast with the latest coming in on Belarus as massive clashes broke out between the police and protesters in Belarus after long ruling strongman Alexander Lukashenko won his sixth term in office with a landslide victory. In a high-stakes presidential election, results showed Lukashenko winning more than 80% of the total votes. His main challenger, Svetlana, won 9.9%, but Tikhanovskaya has now cast doubts on the results.
Что мы уже победили, потому что мы победили свой страх, мы победили свою аполитичность, мы победили апатию и безразличие.
Opposition supporters took to the streets of Minsk and other cities after the polls closed. Several thousand protesters gathered near a central monument in the capital, Minsk, where they clashed off with hundreds of riot police. The Belarus police fired water cannons, tear gas and stun grenades in a crackdown on these massive protests. Several videos showed helmeted police detaining and clashing with protesters. Now, a police prisoner transport van was even seen hitting a crowd of people in Minsk, but there have been no reports of casualties yet. According to a rights group, one protester has been killed in the clashes. More than 200 people have also been detained. Svetlana's presidential bid has given rise to an informal protest movement as many call for change in the ex-Soviet country. But many believe that this will not go down well with the current President Lukashenko, who has ruled Belarus since 1994, is often referred to as Europe's last dictator. The 37-year-old is the strongest challenge that Lukashenko has faced in several years. Her husband, popular blogger Sergei Tikhanovskaya, was one of Lukashenko's challengers. But Sergei was jailed and barred from running the elections. It was then that Svetlana decided to run in place of her jailed husband. The political novice has since attracted thousands of supporters, leading the ex-Soviet country's biggest demonstrations in years. This landslide victory has become more threatening for her. She went into hiding after 9 of her campaign staff were arrested but emerged to vote on Sunday. Belarus has not held free and fair polls since 1995, and it looks like this time is no different. This is also the first time that Minsk has not invited international observers since 2001. Political observers have said that there is little doubt that Lukashenko has rigged the vote in the absence of international observers. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin congratulated Lukashenko on his sixth term in office. Putin also sent Lukashenko a congratulatory telegram, hoping for growing mutually beneficial Russian-Belarusian relations. For more details, let's quickly go across to WION correspondent Dan Ashby, who's joining us live from Moscow this hour. Dan, a very warm welcome to you. Now, these protests have shaken up the presidential elections in Belarus. How have they unfolded so far? Not to forget the crackdown on journalists and activists.
Yes, huge protests overnight through Sunday night. You saw thousands, if not tens of thousands of people taking to the streets in unprecedented scenes for many, many years. This is being described as a pivotal moment for Belarus because there was so much frustration going into this election. There was widespread anger about Lukashenko's handling of COVID-19 and many people seeing it as spreading unnecessarily through Belarus. The economy is struggling and people are also angry about a human rights crackdown. And as you say, no election in Belarus has been deemed free and fair for more than a quarter of a century. So all this was unfolding going into the election. Then you get leaders of the opposition being arrested, thousands of activists being arrested, and widespread feeling that this election has been rigged again. So the result comes out, and as you say, a more than 80% landslide for Lukashenko, and suddenly people are frustrated. They are out on the streets, they are chanting, and they're coming up against riot police. We saw those lines of riot officers firing water cannon, stun grenade, pushing the protesters back, and it looked as if things did quieten down in the end, going late into last night, but They could easily flare up again this week. And I think the question everyone's wondering is this a pivotal moment of change?
Right, that's a very valid question that you've raised. Is this a pivotal moment of change? But Also, Dan, give us a sense of context in terms of why this has been a high-stake election, especially in terms of its longest-serving ruler, Lukashenko.
Well, these things are often a mystery. Why does the resentment suddenly boil up at this moment? I think part of it is just the sheer duration of Lukashenko's rule. As you say, he's been in power for 26 years and people are starting to get fed up of perceptions of vote rigging. And then you have COVID-19 added into the mix, a world pandemic that's hitting many economies and many people's lives. And I think this one just looks so blatantly like there might be voting problems. It's also been a very canny opposition. You've seen, as you say, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya come out and really contest Lukashenko, but also say to her supporters, look, if you're worried about vote rigging, let's publish our votes onto a different website to show who we voted for. 1 million people signed up for that. So suddenly people are seeing the difference between what they think is support for Lukashenko and what Lukashenko is saying, that he's got an 80% landslide. So all of that is coming to a head. Now we'll have to see if the protests continue and whether they can turn this movement into a more widespread movement for change.
Absolutely. We'll have to wait and watch how this movement actually pans out. For now, thank you so much, Dan Ashby, for joining us on this live broadcast.